AITA for cutting off payments after my fiancée invited her ex to our marriage license appointment? I'm Edward, 37, and I had been Rachel's fiancé for 8 months after almost 5 years together. The week everything fell apart, I still had moving labels stacked by my front door, a half-packed box of kitchen stuff in my hallway, and a note on my fridge reminding me to bring my birth certificate to our marriage license appointment. I wasn't a guy looking for a reason to run. I had already packed half my life to join hers. From the outside, Rachel and I looked settled. Both families treated the wedding like a formality. Her mother, Janet, had been saying, "You two are basically already married," since before I proposed. Her father, Paul, had already asked me whether I wanted to be on the same holiday rotation as the rest of the family because, in his words, no point pretending you're a guest anymore. I believed all of that. We had a shared moving checklist taped inside one of my kitchen cabinets. We had a joint savings account for wedding and move-in expenses. We had deposits down on a small venue, a photographer, and a caterer. We had a lease addendum waiting for signatures because Rachel's place was supposed to become our place after the wedding. I had paid more of the upfront costs because Rachel said her money was tied up for a while. She was not broke, and she was not using me in some obvious, cartoonish way. She cried when I proposed. She picked out dishes with me. She sent me links to couches and laughed when I said every modern coffee table looked like a punishment for having knees. That was part of what made it so hard to see clearly. Rachel could be warm, funny, thoughtful, and then suddenly make me feel like I was being unreasonable for wanting a private future with the woman I was about to marry. The problem had a name. Adrian. He was Rachel's ex-boyfriend. They dated before she and I got together, and for the first couple of years, I barely thought about him. He would pop up in stories the way old college friends do. He sent a birthday message once. She mentioned he had helped her through a really complicated chapter. I was not thrilled, but I also wasn't threatened by someone from her past simply existing. Then he stopped feeling like the past. Adrian started texting late at night. Not every night. Not enough for me to point at it and say, "This is clearly wrong," but often enough that I noticed. Rachel would smile at her phone in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in a while, then turn the screen face down when I walked by. The first time I asked about it, I kept my voice calm. "Is everything okay?" She glanced down at the phone, then back at me like I had asked to search her bag. "Can I have one thing that's private, Edward?" That sounded reasonable enough that I backed off. I told myself adult relationships needed trust. I told myself I didn't want to become the jealous fiancé who monitors messages and calls it love. The next time Adrian came up, Rachel and I were folding towels in her living room. She casually said he might stop by her birthday dinner because he was part of the original group. I said, "I'm not asking you to erase him. I'm asking you not to make him part of us." She folded a towel too hard and set it on the couch. A secure man wouldn't feel threatened by history. That became the shape of our fights. I would ask for a boundary. She would translate it into insecurity. I would try to explain that I wasn't banning a friendship. I just didn't want her ex involved in the intimate parts of our relationship. She would say things like support system, emotional maturity, and trust without ownership. The language sounded healthy if you didn't look too closely at how she used it. Adrian always seemed to appear around big milestones. When we talked about the lease, he texted her during dinner. When we discussed wedding vendors, she took a private call on the balcony. When I showed Rachel a spreadsheet I made for our shared expenses, she said, "Adrian thinks spreadsheets can make weddings feel transactional." I looked up from my laptop. "Why does Adrian know about our wedding budget?" She rolled her eyes. "Because I talked to my friends." I remember that sentence because it made me feel foolish for even asking. She said it as if the answer was so obvious that only a suspicious man would question it. Adrian knew our move-in date before my sister did. That one bothered me more than I admitted. Lena, my younger sister, had been helping me label boxes because she claimed my handwriting looked like a doctor writing during an earthquake. She asked when the final move was happening, and I realized I hadn't told her yet. Later that night, Rachel mentioned Adrian had asked if we needed help carrying furniture on the 21st. I said, "I didn't even tell Lena that date yet." Rachel looked annoyed. "Do you want me to make a list of approved topics?" "No," I said. "I want to understand why he knows details I thought were between us. He's not a stranger. He's also not my fiancé." Rachel sighed, long and tired, like I had become one more heavy thing she had to manage. "You're proving exactly what I was afraid of," she said. At the time, I thought she meant she was afraid I was jealous. I didn't know she meant she had been setting up a test. The text came on a Tuesday morning while I was in my car outside a bank appointment. I had gone there to ask about moving more of my monthly savings into the joint account after the marriage license appointment. My phone buzzed, and I saw Rachel's name. "Rachel, hey, don't make this weird, but Adrian is coming with me Thursday." I stared at it for a few seconds, waiting for the rest of it to make sense. "Me coming where?" "Rachel, to the license appointment." "Me, our marriage license appointment?" "Rachel, yes. It's emotionally heavy for me. He keeps me grounded." I sat there with my seatbelt still on, my keys in my lap, and the bank's glass doors in front of me. There were moving labels on the passenger seat because I had stopped to buy more on the way there. Kitchen, bathroom, fragile, donate, Rachel's place. All these neat little stickers for a future that suddenly felt crowded. "Me, why would your ex need to be present for a legal step in our relationship?" "Rachel, because he's part of my support system. Please be mature about this." "Me, I'm not attending a marriage license appointment with your ex-boyfriend." "Rachel, if you can't handle him being there, maybe you're not ready to marry me." I typed 3 different replies. The first one was angry. The second was too long. The third sounded like begging. I deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote, "Then we should not attend the appointment." She didn't respond for 8 minutes. "Rachel, wow. So this is who you are when you feel challenged." I put the phone face down on the seat and went inside the bank, but I didn't make the transfer. I sat through the appointment with a polite expression and left with a printout showing my current individual balances instead of a plan to move money into the joint account. That night, Rachel asked me to come over so we could reset the energy. I went because some part of me still thought a conversation could fix this. I brought takeout because I didn't want us arguing hungry. That sounds small, but when you've been with someone almost 5 years, your body still remembers the old patterns even after your brain starts catching up. She barely touched the food. "You embarrassed me today," she said. "I said I wouldn't attend our marriage license appointment with your ex," I said. "That shouldn't be embarrassing. You're making it sound like I invited him to stand between us at the altar. I'm asking why he needs to be there at all. Because he understands why this is complicated for me. What is complicated about marrying me?" Rachel looked away. That pause did more than any answer could have. Then she said, "It's a huge step, and I need people around me who don't make me feel trapped." I set my fork down. "Do I make you feel trapped?" "When you act like this, yes." There it was again. The loop. She would make a decision that pushed me out, then call my reaction proof that I deserved to be pushed out. I stood up to clear the food containers because I needed something ordinary to do with my hands. Rachel's phone was on the kitchen counter, face up. She had gone to the bathroom, and I was putting the lids back on the containers when the screen lit up. I didn't touch it. I didn't unlock it. I didn't scroll. The notification was just there, bright against the counter. "Adrian, did he pass, or are you still bringing me?" I stopped moving. That sentence did something strange to my body. I expected rage, but what I felt first was quiet. Like some switch flipped off and cut power to the part of me that still wanted to convince her. Did he pass? This had never been about emotional support. It was a test. Or a performance. Or both. I took a picture of the phone as it sat on the counter, notification visible, Rachel's half-empty water glass beside it. I knew even as I did it that I was documenting the end of something. Then I put the takeout containers in the fridge and waited for her to come back. When Rachel returned, I didn't mention the notification. She looked at my face and frowned. "What now?" "I'm going home," I said. "Edward, don't punish me with silence." "I'm not punishing you." "Then what are you doing?" "Thinking clearly." She crossed her arms. "That sounds threatening." "It isn't." I took my jacket from the back of a chair and left before I said anything she could later quote out of context. I called Owen from my car. Owen has been my closest friend long enough to know when I'm angry and pretending I'm not. He answered with, "That bad?" I told him everything. The text, the license appointment, the notification. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do not give her a scene she can quote." "I'm not planning to." "You might, if you keep talking to her tonight. Protect your money before you process your feelings." That sounded cold until I remembered the lease addendum, the deposits, the joint account, the vendors with my card on file, the moving truck reservation I had booked, and the storage unit I had reserved for overflow boxes. Owen said, write down money, dates, names, and what you can still cancel. A calm exit is still an exit. After we hung up, I sat in my car outside my own building for almost 20 minutes making a list in my Notes app. Marriage license appointment. Lease addendum. Venue deposit. Photographer deposit. Catering tasting. Moving truck. Storage unit. Joint savings. Rachel's spare key. Authorized contacts. I wrote down exact phrases too. He keeps me grounded. Maybe you're not ready to marry me. Did he pass? The next call was to Lena. She answered while eating something crunchy, which was very Lena. What did she do? She asked. I laughed once, not because anything was funny, but because my sister knows me too well. I told her. She stopped chewing. Someone who loves you doesn't need an ex-boyfriend present to marry you, she said. She says I'm making it about ownership. You're not controlling her. You're controlling whether you stay. I said I felt stupid. I admitted that out loud for the first time. I felt stupid for not pushing harder earlier, stupid for paying deposits, stupid for telling people we were solid, stupid for not seeing that every time I tried to be patient, Rachel treated it like permission to push further. Lena's voice softened. She trained you to apologize for having standards, she said. Stop calling it patience when it's costing you self-respect. The next morning brought the second piece of proof. An email came through from one of the vendors because my card was on file for the deposit. It was a confirmation for a change request. It said Adrian had been added as an alternate contact. I read it 3 times. Then I checked the earlier chain. Rachel had asked me 2 weeks before if she could streamline vendor communication because I was busy and she didn't want every tiny decision to become a meeting. I had said fine. I thought she meant she would handle more emails. I didn't think she meant her ex-boyfriend would be listed beside my payment method. I emailed the vendor back. Please remove my payment method from any future charges and confirm in writing that I am not responsible for additional changes or balances unless I personally approve them by email. It felt dramatic for about 5 seconds. Then I looked at Adrian's name again and felt nothing but clarity. An hour later, the leasing office called. A woman with a cheerful voice said, "Hi, Edward. I'm just confirming the move-in access notes for the lease addendum. We have Rachel, Edward, and Adrian listed as authorized contacts for the move-in appointment. Is that correct?" I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "Adrian cannot speak for me." There was a pause. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just reading what was submitted. Can you send me written confirmation of the current contact list and the pending addendum status?" "Of course. And please note that I am not signing any addendum that lists Adrian as authorized to discuss the household." Another pause, less cheerful this time. "I understand." When the email arrived, it showed exactly what she had said. Adrian was listed in the access notes. Not as a helper. Not as some guy carrying a couch. As an authorized contact. That was when I stopped thinking in terms of a fight and started thinking in terms of an exit. I didn't drain the joint account. I didn't touch Rachel's portion. I paused future transfers from my account and took a screenshot of the balance. I downloaded statements showing every contribution. I created a folder with receipts, emails, confirmations, and dates. I called the moving truck company and canceled the reservation I had made with my card. The refund policy kept a cancellation fee. Fine. I canceled the extra storage unit I had reserved for both of us and booked a smaller one for my own boxes. Another fee. Fine. I emailed the photographer and asked whether my name could be removed from the balance due. The deposit was non-refundable, and because I had paid it, that money was gone. Not fine, exactly, but measurable. The money was messy, but the disrespect was simple. By late morning, Rachel noticed. Her call started sweet. "Rachel, can we talk like adults?" Then disappointed. "Rachel, you are making this uglier than it needs to be." Then angry. "Rachel, you're seriously going nuclear over one boundary conversation?" I answered once, in writing. "Me. I'm putting the engagement and move-in on hold. I will no longer be financially responsible for any future plans or payments where Adrian has been included in decisions or communications. We can arrange a calm exchange of keys and belongings." She called immediately. I let it ring. Then came a voicemail. "You're proving exactly what I was afraid of, Edward. This is not stability. This is control. You could have talked to me instead of canceling everything behind my back." Behind her back. That part almost made me laugh. I replied by email, remembering Owen's advice not to give her a scene she could quote. Rachel, I am not canceling everything. I am removing myself from future financial and legal commitments that I did not fully agree to. You told me Adrian would attend our marriage license appointment. I later received vendor and lease communications showing he had been added as an alternate or authorized contact. I will not sign documents or continue payments under those circumstances. Edward. She replied 6 minutes later. You're making this about him because you don't want to face how unsafe you make me feel. I wanted to ask how unsafe she could feel while putting my card on arrangements involving her ex. I wanted to ask whether I had been invited to my own marriage or merely expected to fund it. Instead, I saved the email and didn't answer. That afternoon, Maya texted me. Maya was a mutual friend, closer to Rachel but not hostile to me. She had helped with a few early wedding logistics and had been part of a group chat that discussed flowers, menus, and songs. Her text sounded nervous. Maya, hey, I know this is probably not my place, but Rachel is really upset. She said you failed the test, and now everything is falling apart. I stared at the words. Me, what test? A full minute passed before she responded. Maya, oh, I thought you knew she called it that. Me, no. Maya, she said Adrian coming was supposed to prove you'd fight for her without acting possessive. Like, show you could handle her having history and still choose her. I'm sorry. She made it sound like you were part of the conversation. Me. She told you Adrian coming to our marriage license appointment was a test? Maya. Not in those exact words at first. She said it was a secure man test. I thought it was weird, but I also thought you two had talked about it. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Me, we had not. Maya. I'm really sorry, Edward. I didn't understand what she left out. That was the twist that made everything make sense. Rachel hadn't been confused about boundaries. She had been building different stories for different audiences. To me, Adrian was a harmless friend who understood her past. To Adrian, I had apparently agreed to his involvement. To friends, I was a man who needed to prove I was not possessive. To her parents, I was jealous and difficult. To vendors and the leasing office, Adrian was someone who could help make decisions in a future I was paying for. I didn't blast anyone publicly. I didn't post vague quotes about betrayal. I didn't send a dramatic group text. I kept the screenshots and added Maya's message to the folder. Then Adrian messaged me. I had never had a direct conversation with him beyond polite greetings at group events. His message was careful. Adrian, hey Edward, I don't know what Rachel told you, but I'm not trying to be in the middle of your engagement. She said you knew I was coming and were okay with it. For a moment, I almost hated him less. Almost. I replied with one screenshot, Rachel's text telling me he was coming, followed by my response saying I would not attend. Then I sent the photo of the notification that said, did he pass or are you still bringing me? Me. She told me I had to accept it to prove I was ready to marry her. He took a while to answer. Adrian, that is not what she told me. Me. I figured. Adrian. She said you were struggling with jealousy and she needed support. Me. She put you on vendor and lease communications. Another pause. Adrian, I knew about the vendor. I thought she asked you. I did not know about the lease contact list. Me. Neither did I. He didn't reply after that. The lease addendum appointment was the next day. Rachel still expected me to show up. I know that because she texted me that morning with the kind of confidence that comes from believing someone will fold because they always have. Rachel, appointment is at 11. Please don't make this worse. We can still fix this if you stop punishing me. By then, I had already emailed the leasing office. I will not be signing the pending addendum. Please remove my application materials from this proposed arrangement and confirm that I will not be financially responsible for the lease, move-in charges, access permissions, or related household obligations. They confirmed before 10:30. At 11:07, Rachel called. I answered because I knew where she was and what she had just learned. Her voice was tight. What did you do? I removed myself from the lease addendum. You made me look insane in there. No, I said. I made sure I wasn't legally tied to what you built without me. Edward, you need to come inside and fix this. I'm not signing. You are humiliating me. I could hear lobby noise behind her. A door opening. Someone talking softly. Papers moving. I said, I'll meet you outside for 5 minutes if you want a final conversation. She hung up. I drove over because my place was close enough and because part of me wanted to hand over the key myself instead of dragging this out for another week. When I pulled into the parking lot, Rachel was standing near the entrance in a cream sweater I had helped her pick out for our engagement photos. Adrian was several spaces away, leaning against his car, looking like a man realizing he was not in a romantic drama but a paperwork problem. Rachel walked toward me before I fully shut my door. "You're really throwing us away over him?" she said. "No," I said. "You threw us into a room with him and called it maturity." Adrian looked down at the pavement. Rachel lowered her voice. "You're being dramatic." I pulled out my phone. "I'm going to show you something. Not to argue. Not to debate. Just so you understand I'm not leaving because of one text." I showed her the vendor email with Adrian listed as an alternate contact. Then the leasing office confirmation. Then Maya's message about the secure man test. Then Adrian's own message saying she told him I knew. Rachel's face changed with each one. Not guilt first. Panic. "That was private," she said. "What part?" "My conversations with my friends. You made our marriage license appointment a loyalty test involving your ex. Then you added him to logistics I was paying for. Privacy is not the issue." Adrian stepped closer, still several feet away. "Rachel," he said quietly, "you told me he agreed." She turned on him. "Don't start." He looked at me, then back at her. "I thought you needed support, not a reaction out of him." Rachel's eyes flashed. "I didn't need support. You asked me if he passed," Adrian said. For a second, she had no answer. My phone rang. "Janet." Rachel saw her mother's name on my screen and said, "Don't you dare drag my parents into this." I answered and put it on speaker because I was done letting Rachel narrate me in private while I defended myself in pieces. Janet's voice came through sharp and emotional. "Edward, you are breaking my daughter over pride. You could have talked instead of canceling everything." I said, "Janet, I'm going to send you one email. Read it before you decide what this is. I don't need an email to know you're hurting her. You need the email." I hung up and sent it. It was not a rant. It had dates, screenshots, payment confirmations, the leasing office message, the vendor email, Rachel's marriage license text, Maya's message, Adrian's direct message. I removed anything unnecessary. No insults, no theories, just a timeline. Subject, timeline and records related to canceled lease and wedding plans. The first line read, "I am sending this because I am being accused of ending the engagement over jealousy." That is not accurate. Rachel watched me send it and looked like she wanted to slap the phone out of my hand, but she didn't. "You're making me look horrible," she said. "I'm making the record look accurate. You're supposed to love me." I did. That's not an answer. It is. A minute later, Janet called Rachel. Rachel answered, and I could hear Janet's voice even though it was not on speaker this time. "What is this email?" Rachel turned away. "No, Mom, he's twisting it." Then Paul's voice came through, lower and calmer. He must have taken the phone or joined the call. "Rachel," Paul said, who added Adrian as an alternate contact. Rachel closed her eyes. "That is not the point." "It is exactly the point," Paul said. "He was helping." "Was Edward told before or after the change?" Silence. Paul said, "Rachel, stop talking around it." I felt no victory in that moment, just a strange exhaustion. For weeks, maybe months, Rachel had made me feel like every reasonable question was evidence of some flaw in me. And here was her father asking the same basic question in the parking lot, because when you stripped away the therapy words, the issue was obvious. Rachel finally snapped. "Everyone is acting like I cheated." I said, "I didn't cancel us because I was jealous. I canceled what you made out of us." She looked at me then. Really looked. "You're throwing away 5 years. You wanted to see if I'd fight for my place," I said. "I'm not fighting for a seat I was already paying for." Adrian muttered, "I'm leaving." Rachel turned toward him. "Of course you are." He shook his head. "This is not romance. This is chaos." He got into his car and drove away. Rachel looked smaller after that. Not innocent, just smaller. The kind of small people get when the audience they counted on starts exiting before the final scene. I handed her the spare key to her place. She stared at it in my palm. "So this is it. It was it when you made marriage something I had to win against your ex." She took the key with shaking fingers. I got in my car and left. The consequences arrived in pieces, not all at once. The lease arrangement fell apart because my income and payment history had been part of the approval package. Rachel could still stay where she was for a while, but the upgraded lease we planned together was gone. She had to explain why someone named Adrian had been listed in communications for a household he was not joining. Some deposits were lost. Some balances became her responsibility because I had removed my card before the next payment cycle. A vendor sent one dry email saying future changes would require Rachel's direct approval and payment method. I printed it and put it in the folder. Rachel accused me of financial ambush. I answered only once. Me, removing my card from future charges is not an ambush. It is a boundary. She sent back, "You love that word now." I did not respond. Janet stopped calling me after she read the email. 2 days later, she left a voicemail. "I should not have called you cruel before I knew the full story. I did not know he was on paperwork. I'm sorry." She sounded embarrassed, and I believed that part. I did not call her back. I saved the voicemail. Paul texted me once. "Paul, thank you for keeping the evidence limited. I'm sorry this happened the way it did." I replied, "I appreciate that." That was it. Maya apologized again, longer this time. "Maya, I feel awful. She made it sound like you hated that she had male friends, and this was some symbolic thing. I did not know about the lease, the card, or the appointment pressure. I'm sorry I bought her version." I told her I appreciated the apology. Tori, another mutual friend who had helped with wedding logistics, called me a week later. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "She told us you were spiraling," Tori said. "I'm sure she did. She didn't say Adrian was listed on your lease paperwork. That missing part is the whole story." Tori was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I'm sorry. I should have asked more before judging you. I did not need every friend to choose me. Honestly, I did not want some grand social trial. I just needed the people calling me unstable to stop doing it with half the facts." Adrian stayed out of it after the parking lot. A month later, he sent one message. "Adrian, I'm sorry for my part in this. I liked feeling important to her. That made it easy not to ask enough questions. I'm stepping back from her." I did not know what to do with that apology. It was more self-aware than I expected and less than what I needed. I replied, "Understood." Rachel, meanwhile, moved through stages. First, she was furious. "Rachel, you weaponized paperwork because you couldn't handle my past." Then wounded. "Rachel, I thought you were safer than this." Then nostalgic. "Rachel, remember when we used to talk through things instead of treating each other like enemies?" Then philosophical. "Rachel, maybe this was the universe showing us what we still needed to heal." I hated that one the most. Not because I believed it, but because it sounded like the old Rachel. The one who could make selfish choices sound wise if she softened her voice enough. I did not answer any of them. Owen came over one night with pizza and helped me move the boxes that no longer had a destination. The labels looked ridiculous now. Rachel's kitchen, shared bedroom, wedding candles. Lena came the next day with a marker and crossed out anything that made me stare too long. On one box labeled, "Our bathroom," she wrote, "Your towels, idiot." It was the first time I laughed without feeling guilty. The engagement ring became its own issue. Rachel kept it for 3 weeks. I did not hound her about it. I had the receipt and the ring insurance paperwork. I sent one email asking for a public handoff or insured return shipping. She replied that it was gross to make the symbol of our love into a transaction. I wrote back, "The commitment it symbolized has ended. Please return it by Friday." She chose a coffee shop parking lot. I got there early and parked where there were people around, but not close enough to overhear. Rachel arrived in sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. She had the ring in a small sealed envelope. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "So this is just over?" "Yes." "You don't even want closure?" "I want the ring back and the expense agreement signed." She gave a bitter little laugh. "You sound like a stranger." "No," I said. "I sound like someone who stopped auditioning." Her jaw tightened. "I made one mistake," she said. I looked at the envelope in her hand. "No, you made a series of choices. You kept Adrian close. You made me defend basic boundaries. You brought him into our marriage license appointment. You added him to vendor and lease communications. You told different people different versions. Then you acted shocked when I stopped paying for the version where I was disposable." Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. "You failed the trust test," she said. There it was. Even at the end, she still thought the frame would save her. "A trust test built around another man is not a test," I said. "It's a warning." She shoved the envelope toward me. I took it, checked that the ring was inside, and handed her the printed expense agreement. It listed remaining shared costs, credits, and what each of us owed. Not everything was perfect. I lost money on deposits. She owed me for a few charges she had agreed in writing to split. The agreement gave exact amounts and dates. She scanned it. You really reduced us to receipts. The receipts are the only part that stayed honest. She signed. I signed. Then we left in separate directions. The legal marriage license appointment came and went without me. My calendar still reminded me at 9 a.m. I stared at the notification for a long second, then deleted it. I took the birth certificate note off my fridge and threw it away. Not dramatically. It just went into the trash with old takeout menus and a grocery list. The expense cleanup took another 2 months. There were Venmo requests, bank statements, cancellation notices, and one ridiculous argument over a catering tasting fee. Rachel tried to put emotional damages in a text, and Owen laughed so hard when I showed him that he had to sit down. I did not reply to that one either. I kept everything written. I returned the wedding items that were mine to return. I donated decorations that could not be returned and sent Rachel the receipts showing no credit was available. She accused me of being cold. Maybe I was. Or maybe warmth had become the thing she used to keep me paying while she decided how much disrespect counted as growth. By the end, the account was closed. The lease did not have my name on it. The ring insurance was canceled. My card was removed from every vendor. My boxes were in my own place, with fresh labels that did not include her name. Rachel tried one last time about 3 months after the parking lot. Her message came through on a Sunday evening while I was making coffee for the next morning. Rachel, I hope someday you realize I was trying to see if you could love all of me, including my past. I read it twice. Then I answered once. Me, I'm not asking you to erase your past. I refused to sign my future over to it. I blocked her after that. Not because I hated her. Hate still keeps a chair open for someone in your mind. I was tired of saving her a seat. There are things I still regret. I regret ignoring the way my body tightened every time Adrian's name came up. I regret letting Rachel define maturity as silence. I regret paying for plans before the trust underneath them was solid. I regret how long I confused calmness with strength. Calmness is not strength if you use it to stand still while someone moves the line again and again. But I do not regret leaving. People like to say relationships require trust, and they do. But trust is not the same as accepting every situation someone frames as a test. Marriage should not begin with one person proving they can tolerate being replaced in slow motion. The last time I saw Rachel was in that coffee shop parking lot. She looked hurt, and I believe some of that hurt was real. She lost the wedding, the upgraded lease, some friends' easy sympathy, and the version of herself where she was simply a free spirit misunderstood by a jealous man. She had to answer her father's questions. She had to deal with vendors asking whose card should be charged. She had to explain why Adrian had access to decisions he should never have been part of. Adrian backed away when he realized being important to Rachel meant being useful in her chaos. Janet never contacted me again after the apology. Paul sent a Christmas card with only his name signed, which was weird and kind, and I did not respond because I did not know how. Maya and Tori remained distant but polite. That was enough. I moved into a place that was only mine. For the first few weeks, the quiet felt like a punishment. Then it became normal. Then it became peaceful. One morning, I made coffee and reached for a second mug out of habit. I stopped, put it back, and stood there in the kitchen smiling at how small the moment was. No test. No audience. No ex-boyfriend hovering over decisions that should have belonged to 2 people. Just me, a mug, and a future that was no longer being negotiated with someone from her past. I didn't destroy the future we built. I just stopped funding the version where I was treated like a backup plan. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.